Thank you. I'm an architect, but actually, after practicing 10 years, I was very disappointed about my profession as architect because we are mainly working for privileged people who has power and money. Because power and money is invisible, they hire us to make a monument to show off their power to the public. I'm not saying that I don't want to make a monument, but I was really wanted to work for society, not only for the other privileged people, and also people who lost their houses by natural disasters. Also, I recognize earthquake never kill people, but collapse of building kill people. That's our responsibility as architects. But actually, after that big disaster like earthquake, architects are looking for new projects. When city is rebuilt, we get more projects. But I found out the people are suffering with very poor living conditions in temporary shelters and temporary houses before city are rebuilt. So I thought this is our responsibility as architects in order to improve their poor living condition after the disaster. That is why I started working in disaster area. Can I start my slide? Also, when I started my own practice without any architecture experience, I started designing exhibition. This is the first exhibition I designed in 1984 for my favorite architect from Finland, Alvar Aalto. Because Alvar Aalto used a lot of timber and wood, but I couldn't afford. So what I did is using recycled paper tube, which was available in my studio after we finished the pressing paper, wax paper roll. I kept them because I hate throwing things away. And I used the small diameter tube for the ceiling, like Alberto designed Beepley's library. Larger diameter tube was used for the freestanding partition. Then I found out, next please, this is much stronger than I expected. So I started testing in laboratory and found out we have enough strength to make a building. Next please. This is my weekend house, which is not used because I have no weekend. But I had to, I have to, I have to build in order to get government permission to use such unusual material like paper for the permanent building. So this was built in 1990, and it's still there. And then next, please. And a few years after, I was asked by contractor to make that big roof, which can be built by carpenter without any steel. So this is also another structure I get government permission as a permanent structure, which still exists. Next, please. I started using recyclable material in 1985 before people start talking about ecology and recycling. But finally, people start talking about the environment. So this is an Expo 2000 in Germany, Hanover, city of Hanover. The main theme was environmental issue. Because I was the only architect who used recyclable material for building, I was chosen to design government pavilion. This is made of recycled paper tube, locally made in Germany. But as a part of the contract, we asked them to collect all the used paper tube after building demolished because the expo is only for half a year, to recycle all the building material after the expo. Even I didn't want to use concrete. I just made a wooden box filled with sand instead of concrete foundation because concrete is rather difficult material to recycle. And also the connection is just fabric tape. Even the membrane, normally we use a PVC membrane, but PVC is not environmental friendly. I made the membrane out of paper, waterproof and fire protected. Next, please. And then 1984, I found, as I said, I was completely tired of my profession as an architect. I found this two photo on top in the magazine. There is the photo from Rwanda refugee camps. There is the kind of genocide in Rwanda between two tribes, Hutu and Tutsi, and over 2 million people became refugees. And I was very surprised to see this photo because the camp refugee shelter made by United Nations High Commissioner for Refugee was so poor. People are freezing with blanket. During rainy season, this shelter is not good enough to keep them warm. I thought it doesn't, without the improving the shelter, it doesn't help them even any medical care. So I wrote a letter to United Nations High Commissioner of Refugees in Geneva to improve the shelter, but obviously there's no reply. So I went to there, Geneva, without any appointment, and I was very lucky to meet a German architect who was responsible for shelter construction, and I showed him my idea of improving the shelter out of paper tube. And because I was accepted as a consultant, because of the problem they are having big problem with deforestation. The UN just provide them plastic sheet. Refugee has to cut the trees by themselves to make a frame and put the UN plastic on top. But over 2 million people cut the trees. The photo on the right on the bottom used to be the forest, but all the trees gone, and they go much further to cut more trees. So that is why UN started providing aluminum pipes. But the aluminum is very expensive material locally, so they sold them out for money and cut trees again. So that was the timing when I proposed my idea of using recycled paper. Next, please. So I work with some Swiss company to make some prototype on the photo on the right. Also, I want to make something more comfortable. However, because of UN policies, they didn't want to make anything too comfortable because they wanted them to go back to home as soon as possible. So that is why the budget I was given only for one unit was only $50. So my project was only improved in order to make shelter out of paper tube in order to stop deforestation. Next, please. 1995, in city of Kobe, Japan, we had a big earthquake, and I read on the newspaper there is Vietnamese refugees suffering after the disaster. That was time only Japanese government first time receiving the refugees from Vietnam, and they are living in Kobe. And because they are Catholic people, they are gathering at the church. I went there. There was no building. Everything was destroyed and fired after the earthquake. Then I proposed the priest, why don't we rebuild temporary church out of paper? He didn't believe me. He said, why can we make the building out of paper after the fire? But I didn't give up. The next piece, but I commuted to the Kobe every Sunday. Then finally, I got to know the Vietnamese people. They are living, the photo on the top left, living in the park with a blue sheet, a very poor condition. When it's a fine day, temperature goes more than 40 inside, and rainy day, water flow gets wet. Also, although government started making temporary houses, Kobe is quite dense city. Most of the temporary house was built outside of the city. These Vietnamese people had only job in a particular area and particular factory. So if they move to the government temporary house, they're gonna lose their job. So they want to keep living in this park. However, Japanese neighbor people try to kick them out. They afraid this park is becoming like a slum. So I thought we have to provide something more comfortable, healthier, but also something can be accepted by neighbor by making something look very temporary. People never believe that the house can be built by paper, but we built with students with a paper tube, wall, and the roof, and the foundation is made of beer crates. And we just put the sandbag inside to prevent for the typhoon, and the inside is like this. And people was living there for 4 years. Next, please. Then priests trusted me to rebuild the church out of paper, and all students, volunteer, built with us, just 10 meter by 50 meter. The inside is oval shape, which come from my favorite church in Rome, designed by Bernini. And the priest said that it's fine to use only a few years, but actually this was there for 10 years. This became a symbol of the city. There is many concerts, wedding, and the movies. It's become an important community space for the city. Then 10 years later, they decided to rebuild, and I was lucky to design. But also, there's a big earthquake in Taiwan, and we decide to donate. Next, please. And this we disassemble, send over to Taiwan, city of Pili, as a church, and also the community center, which became the permanent community center and church, still exists there. Then I wonder, what is the definition of temporary structure and the permanent? As you know that in big cities, There's so many concrete buildings made by developer, bought by other developer, destroy them, and to put new one. So even building in concrete can be very temporary as long as building was made to make money. But even the building made by paper, if people love it, this can be permanent. Next, please. 2001 in Turkey, they had big earthquake. I was invited to make temporary houses. So all the paper tube and plastic beer crate was donated free by local manufacturer. And the children help us to put waste paper inside of the paper tube to make wall more insulated. Next, please. And this is West India 2001, Gujarat. And I was asked to make temporary houses after the big disaster and earthquake. It was easy. Paper tube can be gained anywhere in the world. Even Kigali, capital of Rwanda, I could find the paper tube company. Only thing I couldn't find in Gujarat was beer crate because nobody drink beer there. So that the local Indian architect proposed me to use a red Coca-Cola crate, but I thought that's out of context. So we made a traditional mud floor and mud foundation. Some of them are used as a house, some of them used as a school. And I got a letter from my local architect in India. He sent me his photo. Still, this exists as a local clinic. So like 20 years, they love it and take care of it, and they still keep it as a local clinic. Next, please. And also, this is in Sri Lanka. Fisherman's village was totally destroyed by tsunami after the Sumatra earthquake. And we went to there to use locally available mud, cement, brick to make 50 houses after the village was totally destroyed. Next, please. 2008, in China, Chengdu, city of Chengdu, when they are having the Beijing Olympic, but this city was totally destroyed by earthquake. Over 30,000 people were killed. Also, many children died because the school was built with a very poor condition. And although I started making temporary houses, the local authority didn't want any foreigner to make houses. However, I met a schoolmaster. She asked me to make temporary classrooms. So I brought my Japanese student to work with local Chinese student for 5 weeks. We built 9 classrooms over 500 square meters just by student with a paper tube and the wooden joint locally available. Next, please. So this is a photo. The children could come back to their original home of school, and this school also still exists. Next, please. 2009, L'Aquila in Italy, and the old city was totally destroyed by earthquake. And at that time, there, as you see this Mr. Berlusconi, former prime minister, he wanted to bring G8 summit. Russia was part of the G8 at that time to his resort island. But because of this earthquake, he suddenly decided to bring G8 summit to L'Aquila. And I met the mayor. They wanted he wanted to have a temporary music hall because the city is famous for music, but no concert hall is available after the earthquake. So I got the land from mayor, and this was very good opportunity that the embassy and Japanese embassy organized this press conference with Mr. Berlusconi, with Japanese Prime Minister, showing my model, and Mr. Berlusconi holding my paper tube because he doesn't know, but also he doesn't know what he's holding, but this is material. Because of this successful conference, next please, I got €500,000 to build this temporary concert hall. Wall is made of just sandbag and the temporary scaffolding in order to have a good insulation of the sound. Just a red curtain donated to cover them. Inside is made of paper tube for acoustical reason, and the structure is pillars is made of paper tube. This still also exists. Next, please. 2010 in Haiti, I have to fly to the Santo Domingo, next door country, Dominican Republic, to drive over 7 hours, finding out this condition, and it was not possible to get material. So I worked with local students in Santo Domingo to bring paper tube and plastic sheet to make temporary shelters. Next, please. 2011 in Japan, northern Japan, we had the earthquake, flooding, and tsunami, and the nuclear problems, and the people evacuated in the big gymnasium, but there are no privacy. And I think privacy is a basic human right. So we started making the privacy partition with the paper tube, with just fabric curtain. We built over 2,000 units in 3 months. Next, please. And also, we built temporary houses with shipping container, 3-story next door. Next, please. Just a shipping container inside is like this. Next, please. And the Philippines, 2015, and although they have a big beer company, San Miguel, they didn't want to donate the paper plastic beer crate. Finally, I had to use the red Coca-Cola crates. Next, please. Next, please. 2015, 16, and Nepal, we built the house with the wooden frame with the rubber of the brick, and also schools. Next, please. And Christchurch, New Zealand, 2011, I got the email when I was busy working in the Fukushima. He said that you must be the architect who can design temporary church, the charge of free. I said, if church is used for the public services, not only religious service, I'm happy to do. So I went to there and analyzed on the original the section, diagram, floor plan. Next, please. Then I built a temporary cathedral with a paper chip locally available. Foundation is made of shipping container. And this became the symbol of the city and tourist destination. And this also almost become permanent church. Next, please. This is the most recent project I'm busy now, making partition for Ukrainian refugees. This is the city of Haim. They have to get out of this first train station after the border, and they get out here and registered, and they go to the big gymnasium without any privacy. Next, please. I work with my colleague of New European Bauhaus, Hubert, from he's a Polish architect, working with local student, making partition with local donated. Free paper tube and the curtain was donated free. And next, please. And the other stations, next, please. And also Paris, my office has Paris, so we also built that 300 shelters in Paris in gymnasium. Next, please. Slovakia, the other team are working with the student. Next, please. And this is a review in Ukraine. We haven't gone to there, but we sent over the unit and the local Ukrainian architect, our colleague, built the partition by themselves. So we continue working for Ukraine. Next, please. And the last project, this is the second phase, where I'm proposing rebuilding of the apartment in affordable housing with a new system of styrofoam, foam core, just painted with the fiber, glass fiber reinforced plastic, like it's a technology, typical technology making board. So this is very inexpensive, locally made in Ukraine, and also creating a new employment opportunity. So this is the new project, this second project we are now preparing in Poland and Ukraine. Thank you very much.